Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. This is the webinar on setting up and running a family-based immigration practice, sponsored by DocketWise. I'm James Pittman, co-founder here at DocketWise. I have with me attorney Anna Ernest from Virginia, who is a well-known immigration lawyer, and attorney Tiffany Fetter from California, who is also been involved in the immigration practice for a number of years. I'm going to have both of them introduce themselves. Anna, why don't you go ahead?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Ernest. I practice out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. I own and operate a small boutique practice in Virginia Beach, and we also have offices in Norfolk and in Europe. And currently, I have 6 attorneys on my team and some support staff, mainly focusing on immigration, family law, and assisted reproductive technology law. And I'm happy to be here and share what I know with you all.
Thank you so much. Tiffany?
Hi, my name is Tiffany Fetter. I'm an attorney based out of Los Angeles. I have my own practice. I do primarily immigration and criminal defense. I cater to a large population of the Israeli community. I'm fluent in Hebrew and in Spanish, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mm-hmm. And for myself, for James Pittman, so I'm co-founder, like I said, co-founder here at DocketWise. Prior to that, I was in the private practice of immigration law, and I had a mixed practice. I did a number of different areas. Family immigration certainly was a huge part of it, sort of a bread and butter portion of the practice. I did removal defense and asylum as well, and business immigration, some employment-based immigration, mostly with doctors, IT people, and academics. All right, so I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about was when you get started, kind of having a vision for your practice and putting together some sort of a plan. And this whole idea of, finding what sets you apart and then trying to build on that, determining who your client base is going to be and how you're going to find your niche within immigration. So why don't we have either one of our guests talk about that if you can?
So if I can. So I started out primarily doing criminal defense, and I saw such a need. I'm also the daughter of immigrants, so I remember my own parents having to go through this process, and I remember the stress, and there wasn't anybody to kind of hold their hand through it. And I knew that when I established myself in such a role that I could contribute and give back, I jumped on the opportunity to do immigration and to help families reunite. I think it's really, really important. And I think having had gone through it myself, I saw that there was such a need and people don't understand it. Anytime you're talking about forms in the federal government, I think people automatically get very, very nervous. So I started, and I would spend hours upon hours on these applications. And then to my great surprise, there was DocketWise, and it became easy. And where in one point where I could do, let's say 20 applications in a month, suddenly I had DocketWise and I could do 100, and it takes away a lot of the time that I had to put in. And it helps me really focus on building my practice around it. And today I have hundreds of adjustment of status cases, family-based petitions, and really it's thanks to DocketWise that I was able to do that for my practice.
But Tiffany, how did you get involved, heavily involved in the Israeli area? Because that's really like a niche for you, as from what I understand. How did that come about?
So I speak Hebrew like I speak English. Mm-hmm. I got into criminal defense literally by fluke. And what happened was in criminal defense, all of a sudden people were doing all these different, if it's plea, if it's trial, and not realizing the severe immigration consequences. Most of them had green cards. And I became the go-to person in LA for criminal defense that spoke Hebrew. And then I realized, wait a minute, it's not just criminal, like these people always have severe immigration consequences and they don't know. So it was very natural to go from criminal into immigration. It just, those two I feel are very much complemented and go hand in hand.
Mhm. That's great. And I'm going to have Anna tell her experience. And I just think that that's an important point, which is sort of the sympathetic sort of aspect between different areas of the law. Immigration fits very well with a couple different areas of the law. If you have a criminal practice, you'll find overlap with your immigration clients. If you have a family law practice, you'll find overlap with your immigration practice. Same thing if you're doing business law, then you have a sort of a foot up to get the business immigration clients. Anna, why don't you tell us how you determined where you fit in immigration and how you went about building your niche?
So I'm originally from Russia. I arrived in the United States in 2004 with one suitcase without speaking any English whatsoever. And somehow I ended up in law school and I graduated in 2013. Being multilingual, I already had predisposition and interest in immigration law, as well as being myself an immigrant and having gone through all the stages of naturalization, adjustment of status first. Well, actually first changing the visa from one type to another, then applying for adjustment of status, then naturalizing. I already had a great interest in immigration process in the United States. And after graduating law school, my goal was kind of just get a job. And usually, no matter what your great ideas are, your first job kind of determines your niche and specialty. So I was fortunate enough that my first job was for a small boutique law firm in Norfolk to handle family law. And as I started getting more and more private clients, I realized and kind of fell into the niche that all the Russian and Eastern European communities gravitated towards me. And I became known as the go-to attorney who speaks Russian, Ukrainian, and also relates to the Eastern European culture. So my boss at that time, she was flexible and she said that I could open immigration practice. And then years later, I was able to purchase the existing law firm since the owner retired. And now I was able to grow the firm. So now we have 6 attorneys and 4 of us practice immigration law. And as well as kind of becoming an entrepreneur, getting more into business side of it, I receive a lot of calls from people who want to sell me an ad or they want to sell me a product. And I almost always never answer the emails, I never answer the phones. And one night I was just sitting in the office by myself. It was probably 8 or 9 p.m. and the phone is ringing and I answered and I think it was James. And he said, I invented this software and I want you to try it. And for some miracle, I said, okay, fine, let's do it. And then I think that was just a most important day of my immigration practice, since it was the best day, really, since before my life was involved with lots of paper, lots of data entry, lots of mistakes, lots of human errors. And now it's just, night and day. I'm definitely a biggest fan of DocketWise. I think it's such a great idea. And, now I just think, why did I think about that? But my advice for people who are starting out, capitalize on something that you already have, whether this is a second language, whether this is your people skills. I always wanted to help people, and my vision for the practice is actually client first. I tell my attorneys all the time, we can have the prettiest office, we can have the most beautiful furniture, computers, etc. And the phone is not going to ring if we're not there for the client. And so then what are we going to do? So the whole point is to have clients, to help people, to put the client first. And I relay the message, and people love us. And so that's my advice for everybody. Don't focus so much on the facade, on the pretty things, focus more on the relationship, and then you will be successful. I can guarantee that.
It's a little embarrassing to hear all this flattery. I just want everybody to know I didn't bring these two ladies here to flatter us today, but it's wonderful that they find a lot of satisfaction in docket wise. I mean, this is really, today's webinar is really a value add for our users. I want you users to get valuable information out of this webinar, but that's wonderful to hear. Anna, you said that you purchased your practice, and that's an interesting aspect of it. Is, I started the practice with no clients. I mean, so the other ways that you can do it are to purchase an existing practice or to split off from an existing firm. So there's several ways that you can arrive in the situation of having your own practice. I think the majority of people probably have to start from scratch, especially nowadays. More people than it used to be the case are starting their own practice, right out of school or within the first couple of years of school. For me, I had a number of years that I had worked in firms. I actually worked in the intellectual property area. And surprisingly, there are a lot of things about that practice that carried over into immigration. Obviously not the substantive aspects of the law, but how cases, it was a federal administrative practice area, and how cases get through the system, filing applications and kind of shepherding them through a federal agency that carried over into, when I moved into immigration. But I want to talk a little bit about choice of entity. When you're setting up your business, this is a whole discussion that you probably would have either with an accountant or with a business lawyer, or at least carefully research it on your own, is whether to be a sole proprietor, whether to be a partnership, whether to be a corporation. Tiffany, how is your practice organized?
So I actually went into this wanting to be a U.S. attorney. And it didn't work out that way because there was a huge recession going on. And I found myself forced to open my own practice if I wanted to practice law. Nobody was hiring. I became a sole practitioner. I didn't have any clients. I waited for the phone to ring, and it did. Slowly but surely it did. And I learned that the biggest asset in doing that was being able to call on fellow attorneys and asking for help. I think that's the biggest thing. We were afraid. I'm definitely available to my colleagues. And I think we all need to make an effort to do that, because without help and without being able to talk to other people, it's just a really scary black hole. And I think, especially with choosing how to open it, within a few years, I don't really know how many, but I did become I did incorporate, and it made it easier. And I think running your own practice is grueling, it's dreadful, it's hard, but at the end of the day, it's very rewarding because it's yours. And like Anna said, I agree that it's all about meeting people at eye level and being humble. And once you have sharpened those skills, move on to the rest. Because like she said, it doesn't matter how beautiful the facade is. If you don't have clients, it doesn't matter. So you need to work on those people skills. And if you have them, and you can carve a niche out for yourself, and you don't have fear, because there's a lot of fear in starting your own practice. If you're able to just jump in and do it, have people that you can talk to. And James, I found you've always been very available. And as the software develops, I feel that so does my practice. And I can, utilize the software better and utilize it for more things. That's been very helpful to me as a lawyer as well. But I did, I stayed true to the boutiqueness of my firm. I am expanding. I'm expanding to, another state right now, and I will be opening a satellite office overseas. And it's having that niche and doing what you're passionate about and what you love. The rest will come. And, I think that sums it up.
And I would say, don't be afraid to kind of get a little bit out of your comfort zone too. I mean, one of the things is, geographically, which immigrant communities are located in the area where you're situated. I mean, if you're in the Southwest, you're probably, well, let's put it this way. There are certain areas of the country where the majority of the immigration work, let's say a lot of it is going to be Spanish speaking, but then there's other areas where there's really a diversity of immigrant communities. I mean, I wound up getting a large number of clients from West Africa and from the Caribbean, and I don't have a personal connection with either of those areas of the world. But what happened was, one or two clients, a couple of clients came to me who were from those areas. And once I successfully handled their case, I got word of mouth referrals. Those communities are very close knit, and people tend to be referred by friends and by people that they trust. And if they had a positive experience with you, they relate that to their friends, their relatives, their cousins, and so forth. And before I knew it, without literally having done any advertising whatsoever, I had a substantial number of clients from these parts of the world. So I would say also check out, geographically which communities are around you, and see if you can do a little outreach to them. Don't be afraid to get a bit out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I completely agree with you, especially with the immigrant communities. It is such a reputation-based and word-of-mouth based referral system. And, it comes down to being trustworthy, being accessible, being relatable. It doesn't matter if you don't speak their language, as long as you can break down the process in simple terms and explain everything and being down to earth. I think that's the key for immigration. And when I started, I also didn't have any immigration clients at all. I had 0 immigration clients. I had only a family-based immigration, a family-based practice. So we did a lot of custody divorces, but I think somebody recommended me, and I did the first adjustment of status case for somebody, and they were satisfied. So they referred people from their community. And don't be afraid to do legwork. Like at the beginning, I was literally putting up flyers and dropping them off at little tiendas in the little neighborhoods and the Russian store. I would drop my business cards, the little gift here and there, just say, introducing myself, telling people that I do immigration. So when being a business owner at the beginning, especially, don't be afraid to go down to the ground and actually do your marketing for yourself, in even like old school, like dropping off flyers and introducing yourself to the communities. It can be really effective.
And I was going to add, I was going to put this under my do's and don'ts. I was going to talk about do's and don'ts at the end, but I mean, one of the things that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money on advertising at the beginning. That would be, I would say that would be one of the mistakes to avoid, because immigration really is largely a word of mouth. I mean, you can do online, obviously online marketing is very useful, but word of mouth is where it's at, and that doesn't cost you anything. That would be my tip, is don't make the mistake of spending a lot on advertising right out of the gate. But do really try to get word of mouth referrals. Tiffany, you were going to say? And
it goes back to the whole thing. Be humble, be personable, realize that somebody's entrusting their life. They're putting their life in your hands. Take that seriously. You're not above anybody. You're not below anybody. We're all the same. If we have a language barrier or there's a difference in education, it doesn't make any difference at the end of the day, because if you are doing immigration and you're handling immigrants, you better be very humble, and grateful. They're entrusting you. They're taking a chance, and your reputation is everything. I take it very seriously. When I have a client who's dissatisfied or upset, and I know that it's a very simple fix, it troubles me because I don't want anybody leaving here not understanding. I'll take more time. I'll schedule another appointment. I value my time, but I value their trust more. And I think it's really important to leave the biggest piece of advice that I received is that no matter what, always call people back. No matter what. I don't leave my office until I've called everybody back. Sometimes there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck in court, but that's a big one for me. Even, if I lost a message, and we're human, I'll apologize. Always go that little extra mile and be grateful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And realize that If you're not an immigrant yourself, do realize if you're new to this field that for many of the people, their immigration status is actually probably second only to their physical health in terms of their importance to them. That's the whole foundation of their life, and their ability to live a productive life in the US rests on having their immigration status in order. So recognize the importance of what you're doing. Did you want to add, Anna, did you have something else to add?
No, that's all
Okay,
good.
sorry. Okay, let's talk about office space. And back in the old days, it was the only choice that you really had was a brick and mortar office where you went and you made a lease to rent space. And that's still how most lawyers probably operate, but there's other options now, and I think we should talk a little bit about them. There's co-working spaces, like WeWork and other co-working spaces, executive suites arrangements where you can rent one office in a set of suites that's serviced by sort of a central receptionist and staff, and you sort of pay a la carte for the services. You can rent space from a larger firm. They may have an office within their firm that they want to rent out to you. So I'd like to hear our guests' experiences with how you devise the physical setup of your office, and how much of it is in person, how much of it is virtual. Do you know anyone who does virtual only? Do you ever operate virtually only?
So I'm happy to jump in. I started with a virtual, a barrister suite, and I think that especially with immigration, that one-on-one personal relationship is essential. Within, I don't know, 2 months of having this virtual space, I took an office in a bit with other attorneys were renting out space. If you have the opportunity to do that, I strongly suggest it. You learn, it's because law isn't just what the law says and what you have to do. It's those skills. We don't know. Most of us are out of law school, past the bar, have never run a business. And I think if you can get space with another attorney, it's the best way to start. If anybody's in LA, I have an office and I'm happy to host you here. I happen to have an empty office, but if you can do it and get in with another attorney, I think it's the best. Virtual is horrible for immigration. If there's no choice, we can practice anywhere and we could do a Zoom, it's fine. But if you have that opportunity, I think people feel more secure when they have that personal one-on-one.
Yes, I agree. That's a kind of unique situation for immigration practice, because in my office, when the pandemic hit, actually one attorney went completely 100% remote. She never went to the office, I think, for a year. Nonetheless, her practice exploded. She's extremely successful. She doubled the amount of cases, and how she does it, I don't know. She does it from home. She has excellent interpersonal skills, but we supplemented remoteness with access to attorneys. We're using WhatsApp, we're using FaceTime. We're not afraid to use our cell phones. We're using all the technology in the world that is available to people to do consultations. I do a lot of remote consultations. We do signings, prefer to do signings in person. We almost always have somebody in the office, like a live person, and about 50% of our clients prefer to come in person. As well as if there is a language barrier, when you have a client face-to-face, you can understand them much easier, and they can understand you when they actually see you speaking. So
Go ahead.
yes, but I do definitely want to emphasize to young attorneys and attorneys who are just starting out, do not invest tons of money in fancy buildings and in lots of rent. Right before the pandemic hit, I got an amazing offer to rent this huge office, and I think my rent would probably increase by 5-10 times. And then am I glad right now that I did not take on that offer, because back like the last year, I don't think anybody went face-to-face. A lot of attorneys went remote, clients preferred not to come in, but still this overhead of rent, it is a big one. And I don't want young attorneys to invest so much. And like I said, that's going to be a facade. It's going to be, phone is not ringing, but you still need to pay the rent. So at the beginning, I did office share. And I was happy with the situation. We shared support staff as well, and it was excellent. Now I'm in a position that I can afford an actual brick and mortar office. It's beautiful, wonderful, and I have an actual person who's answering the phones, greeting clients, and there's office for every attorney. However, at the beginning, it was not the case, and I'm glad that I did not invest a lot of money and put myself in the hole when I didn't have as many clients.
The way that I did, that's great advice, Anna, and I agree. I mean, that's another huge one where you can go wrong is, getting into a commercial lease with a high rent. And, when you're not sure, frankly, that you're going to be able to cover the rent, you better be very, very sure that you're going to be able to cover the rent every month. That's an enormous mistake that you don't want to make. I mean, I
remember they're making you personally guarantee the rent. So if you're closing your LLC, you're still on the hook for that lease. And the commercial leases, they like to sign for 4 years, 5 years.
5 years. Absolutely. The way that I did it, was to sublease from another attorney who had a larger staff, and he held the lease with the building, and I sublet from him, and that worked great. And I think that being in an environment where there are other lawyers, especially when you're first getting started, it's very useful. If you go rent space on a floor of a building where they're the only lawyer, you're depriving yourself of the ability to sort of knock heads to people. And you're also potentially depriving yourself of important referrals. And don't even be afraid if there's another immigration lawyer who's close by. That does not necessarily mean you're going to be in a situation of direct competition with them. They might be an important source of referrals. There may be cases that for one reason or another, you prefer not to handle. You may want to refer cases to them. They may be an important mentor for you. So also don't be afraid to, be in close proximity to, I mean, the street when I had my office, the street that I was on, there were no less than 2 or 3 other immigration lawyers within a 3-block distance. And at no point did I feel that we had oversaturated the market. So, but that would be my 2 cents is check out subleasing from other attorneys. Tiffany, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was forced from a sublease situation where they left, and I was the only attorney in a huge suite. And I felt like Tom Hanks in what was that movie where he talks to the ball? Can't remember. Where he's on an island. I felt like that. It was horrible. So no matter what kind of attorneys are near you, jump at that opportunity, get space with other attorneys. It's invaluable. That's who you're going to learn from. Absolutely. And I personally, if I may, I had to have an office. If I don't have a separation between home and office, I'm insane. So I know that I come here and I work from 9 to 5, sometimes 6 if I have to a little later. But I come home and if I don't have I feel like balance is very important, especially when you're on your own. And I feel like, especially with immigration, it really overlaps with times. These are hardworking people, most of them blue collar working, they finish work at 5, they want to talk to you in the evening and on the weekends. And if I personally don't have a separation, I won't function as a human ever.
I have a little specific quick tip on office sharing. So when you're on the budget and there is an office share and they say, come in and you can put, 4 desks and attorneys can all work together in one room. Not the best idea and not the best setup for attorneys, in my opinion, because if your practice is growing and everybody is on the phone and you answer, talking to your clients, and then it's 2 or 3 attorneys talking simultaneously, the privacy issues, that's number one. And second of all, it's just not going to work. So be mindful of that. don't always go for the cheapest rent. Try to figure out, the setup and how it's going to play out, because that's something that we kind of learned in the hard way. Even with 2 attorneys sitting in one office, it can be really hard.
So I've never done office share. I don't know anything about it, but until I was able to afford an office, which was essential for me, I subleased, and I had that barrister where I would rent their conference room and I would pay per hour. I strongly recommend, at the minute you can, sublease an office. I don't know. I don't know if we even have office shares here in LA. Very foreign to me, but office for me was essential. It gave you more legitimacy. Clients come to an office, they like that. They don't want to meet at a Starbucks, and I think you need to have some presence about you, and you do have to have space. It doesn't have to be fancy, but have an office space. People need to be able to come find you somewhere. And most important, just so all of you are very, very aware, nobody to this day can figure out how to scan documents. So you need to have them come in to sign. They'll cam scan, and I haven't had success with that with immigration. Those live signatures, I explain time and time again that they do not accept DocuSign or electronic signatures. And I've had huge issues. It's been the biggest problem for me is those live signatures on those applications. You'll get them to come in, or I don't know, messenger it to them or mail it with the self-addressed stamped envelope. Do not rely on them to scan anything ever.
Very good tip. Very, very good tip. Let's move and talk about insurance that you would need. So let's just open it. People might not really understand the full scope of why do you need liability insurance and how much insurance do you need? Let's talk about that. I mean, when I always used the AILA insurance program, American Immigration Lawyers Association. It used to be through a company called Complete Equity Markets. I think that they changed it over now. I think they're with Hanover now. But so let me ask our guests here. Either Anna, how did you decide which insurance that you needed? First of all, tell people why do you need insurance?
Well, first of all, it's required by the Virginia bar. So I practice out of Virginia. So it is absolutely required to have malpractice insurance. So you pay there. If you're a business owner, there's multiple insurances you need to purchase. The most important one is the malpractice insurance. So it's required by the bar in order to be licensed. And how I decided, I basically called every reputable insurance company in that my colleagues recommended, my mentors. I called every seasoned attorney that I knew, and then I got all of their recommendations. Then I called all the insurance companies, and I actually, quite frankly, didn't go with the cheapest one. I went for I made my decision based on several factors, but the customer service, accessibility being one of them. Also, a little tip to attorneys, the very first year is usually the cheapest, because when you're starting out, you don't have any prior acts, and then it kind of goes up from there. So ask about the fee schedule and the premiums and how the premium schedule works right off the bat. So the second or third year, you're not totally shocked by the increase. And it's absolutely recommended. If your bar does not require it, you should absolutely have it. If there is coverage for litigation support, or if there is a potential claim against you, if your client is dissatisfied, they're asserting a potential claim for malpractice, as a lot of insurance companies, they are going to assign you an attorney who will do this pre-litigation support, and they will actually counsel you and help you to deal with that client with that potential claim. And I don't think you even pay a deductible for that. Just read all the fine print of the contract with insurance. Talk to as many as you can possibly talk to, and then make a decision. Don't go with the first one. Don't go with the most pushy one. And definitely make a wise decision, but you can always switch. If you don't like, it's not like you're married them forever.
And I think they usually specify the limits. There's usually sort of, they tell you two limits. It's like 100,000, 300,000, or 1 million, 2 million, something like that. And my understanding is you're covered. The first number is the amount per act that you're covered. And the second one is sort of like the aggregate of the aggregate amount that you're covered for the year. I think that's how it works. So make sure that you understand how those limits work and what those limits are. Tiffany, how about you? Do you want to add anything about insurance?
Yeah, before anything, before I got a phone number, I got malpractice insurance, and we get it because we are entrusted with a lot and we can mess up. And whenever I'm doing anything that I can mess up in, I want insurance. I want to be covered. I have it for my car. Of course, before anything, you're going to have it for this. You have a license that you have a license to help, but you also have a license where we make mistakes because we're human. So first and foremost, malpractice insurance. And like Anna said, it's very cheap for your first year. I've actually stayed with the same company the whole time. And also you get free MCLEs, which is great. You get those continuing education classes for free, usually during the insurance, and we all wait till the last minute and jam pack them in. So I think that's just, I wouldn't practice without malpractice insurance for a minute.
And there's a lot of good companies out there. There's a number of companies. If you're a member of, I'll just say it again, if you're a member of the Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA, they have a program, and that's always been, the insurance companies they use are very familiar with immigration law. Hanover Insurance, Complete Equity Markets, there's several of them, but do your research.
Lawyers Mutual.
What is that called?
Lawyers Mutual.
Lawyers Mutual.
There are also MLM, it's a Minnesota Lawyers Mutual. And with all the mutuals, they actually send you a check once a year. I don't know.
Oh yeah, for the dividends.
Right?
Dividend check.
Every year, I forgot.
It's amazing. Get a little cash back.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, with
That's
the mutual,
awesome.
they send you cash back. So you guys, I definitely recommend check that out, because I think it comes out in December. Really good timing also for the Christmas time.
Excellent. That's who can turn it down. Let's talk about technology, in-office technology. And obviously for immigration, forms is huge, and that's why I'm sitting here, right? Forms is huge and case management is huge, but there's other types of technology as well that you also need. Maybe you want to utilize a virtual assistant or virtual receptionist. How to decide what telephone system. Are you going to use a landline? Are you going to be all cellular? Are you going to use VoIP? Are you going to have which platform are you going to use for your email? Are you going to rely on Gmail? Are you going to use a firm domain? Will you communicate with clients by text message? These are all things that you need to decide. Will you have your own accounting software? So let's talk about those technology issues. Either one of you, feel free, whatever you want to put in.
So what I use, you guys, is it's a Gmail-based account. Of course, it is domain for Ernest Law Group from a website, but it's a Gmail-based email, which integrates with the calendar, email, and all other, Google Drive, whatever, all the other applications that come with Gmail. My attorneys absolutely love it because of the simple user friendliness of, Gmail or Google is just the best there is, in my opinion. We never had any issues. We love it. I make sure that everything is authenticated and the security is up to date. Make sure you have a professional Gmail. It doesn't look good really if your email is, attorney@yahoo.com. I have sort of like AOL.com. It definitely gives out
I think the days when you could get away with a Hotmail address or an AOL address, it's so easy now to set up a professional looking domain name. There's really not an excuse to go around using Hotmail in your business life.
That's pretty obvious.
Yeah. But you need to have online presence. And I think you should have a website. It should be developed. I try to do mine every year and I just don't get to it. I have mine hosted through Avo. I don't know if that's a great idea. I'm actually having a lot of second thoughts about it, but I think online presence is a lot. Yelp matters also, which goes back to those relations with customers, clients. You need to have online presence. I mean, people today, no matter what they're looking up, they're going to their phone right away, whatever it may be. So you need to have some online presence, and you can start utilizing it from very little. You can contribute to articles. You can start establishing yourself with a great online presence quite easily without investing, a lot of money and using the platform to your benefit.
Yes, once you have a website, people will start emailing you different offers. What you should take advantage of is the chat. You should absolutely add a chat on your website. It's a super easy program.
No, I don't have one.
Oh, yes. So
Thank
it's
you.
24/7. It can be done in multiple languages. You have to pay for every chat, and their fees varies. Like, I don't know, from $10 to $50, whatever. You can work out a deal. My advice: always negotiate with everybody. If they're offering you $50 for a chat, offer them 10. If they say, let's do 15, 20, whatever, always negotiate, but add a chat. Text messaging is absolutely a must these days. We text clients all the time. So what I have for my phones, we actually have technically a landline, but it's really through the internet. We have actual phones. I have cordless phone. I have phones with cords that you plug into the wall. But all of these, my phone system also has apps that is Android and iPhone compatible, and you can text through the app, and people don't really text your cell phone, they texting the app. I use Vonage. It's super cheap. I'm happy with them. But there's tons of other companies, which is basically like a landline, but it's actually not a landline that offers you text messages. So you absolutely should do that.
So I actually have a landline, and I've set up a WhatsApp business for my landline, and I communicate a lot through that because I deal with a lot of Israelis, and they all use WhatsApp. So depends on the community too. You want to cater to that community.
Yeah, WhatsApp is quite popular nowadays. That was just becoming popular back when I was in practice. I found that separating, if you can really separate the text message and well, let's talk about this. I mean, what do you give clients your cell phone number? Some people do, some people don't. I mean, I want to hear others' opinions about that. In retrospect, I think that if possible, if possible, you probably shouldn't give them your personal cell phone number. I mean, I think it just opens the door to more problems than it creates in the law practice situation. But go ahead, Anna. What do you give clients your cell phone number?
I personally do not. However, I do have a big presence on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and people message me there all the time. So my line is kind of blurred there because it goes on my personal cell phone. I have, as far as my attorneys, I give them a choice. So some attorneys chose to put their cell phone number, and I think they have 2 different cell phones. So it is a personal cell phone, but like a secondary cell phone for them. But I personally do not give out my cell phone number because my email is getting checked all the time anyway, and I'm pretty responsive. And I don't think, I can, like I said, I can text through the app. So if you want to give out your cell phone for texting, my recommendation would be to do texting through the app, because then, I do a lot of billable work as well. So I have to bill by the hour. And then how are you gonna bill for text? That's basically the primary reason why I don't do it anymore, because it just gets too messy. Email is great, and if you're responsive, that's all the clients need. They just need a response.
So I personally, I disagree. I think at no expense do you give your cell phone. If you have an office number, do not give your cell phone. I think it exposes you to malpractice. I think if they send a text and for whatever reason you didn't get the text, and they're going to go and complain about you to your local bar, they're going to show that they sent that text. And if they had access to your cell phone and there's a text that you didn't get, I feel like it just opens a can of worms to malpractice. I think all communication should be relegated to email and office phone. I think that regarding, these social media platforms, I always respond and I direct them to the office number or my email, because I don't want to be in a situation where I didn't respond or I didn't see it. And I got to a point where I was getting hundreds of text messages a day. It was crazy. You can't operate. You can't, because you can't just hand off your cell phone.
You can, and I think whatever means you choose to communicate with people, I think you want to be sure that you're going to be able to manage the communication. What you don't want to do is have communication spillover that gets out of control. So if you find that clients, if you don't give out your cell phone to clients, but somehow they find you on Facebook and start messaging you on Facebook through Messenger or something, if you start making it a habit of answering things like that, you're blurring the lines and you're opening up the door to more problems. So whichever means, pick the means how you're going to communicate with the client, and make sure that you have a system in place where you're going to respond to the communication. You want to keep it structured, and that's for professional reasons in terms of how you manage the business, because you want communications going through your office, going through your staff, communications to be responded to in a systematic way, not a haphazard way. And also personally for you, because it can quickly, it will get overwhelming for you if people inundate you with communications on your private cell, and you will not be able to manage those communications, which will have adverse effects both on your business and on you personally. So that would be my advice, is whatever means you choose, put a system in place to manage the communication. What about, so are either of you using accounting, do you separate accounting software? I mean, I think, are you doing, I think probably both of you do invoices through, maybe both of you do invoices through DocketWise, but do you use anything separate for accounting?
Yeah, I actually don't use invoicing through DocketWise, but I use QuickBooks Online, and I'm very happy with it. Yeah, there are other companies that offer it. I use QuickBooks Online. I've been using it for years. I can recommend it. I like it.
I hand my whole stack to my accountant to do my bookkeeping. I have enough. I can't do any. I don't use DocketWise for invoicing because I have usually flat fee retainers. If we have any kind of payment schedule, I'll put that in my calendar. I will. Now that I'm really expanding immigration, so I will utilize invoicing. I think it'll make things easier, but I haven't to date, and I'm going to start because you have to. I can't. It's too much on my plate anyway. But if I can delegate anything, I happily do that.
I have a great recommendation for, it's not necessarily invoicing, but LawPay. I don't know, Jeremy, are you integrated with LawPay these days?
James, yeah, and we are integrated.
So sorry.
We are integrated, that's okay. We are integrated with LawPay. We have an integration with LawPay, and we have an integration with QuickBooks Online as well in our DocketWise Suite version. So the LawPay integration does a couple different things. When you connect DocketWise to LawPay, that's going to put a link on your invoices when they go out. When you transmit an invoice to a client, either by email or by text message, when they receive that invoice, there will be a link there for them to pay the invoice with their card, and that transaction will be processed by LawPay. LawPay will put the funds in your account, and the payment will credit to the DocketWise invoice. Also, the LawPay integration, you can put it would put the LawPay button on the client portal. So if you're using the client portal with a client, they'll be able to log in to the portal, and you can share the DocketWise invoice on the client portal, and they can pay the invoice right from the portal with a pay button and their card. You can also use a payment plan where you would input the client's card information on your side, and then you set up the terms of the payment plan, whether it's monthly or whatever the frequency is and how much you're charging them. And then they will be automatically charged on their card every time a payment is due, and those payments will all reflect on the DocketWise invoice, and that'll just stop when the balance on the invoice reaches zero. Those are all possible through the LawPay integration, and the LawPay integration is included with your DocketWise subscription. We do also have the QuickBooks integration on our DocketWise Suite version. So just for anyone who doesn't know, DocketWise has sort of two levels or two versions. There's the DocketWise Standard, and then there's DocketWise Suite, which has a few extra features. One of the extra features is the QuickBooks integration. And once you link QuickBooks Online to DocketWise, then any invoice transaction that you do in DocketWise will be pushed to QuickBooks, and it'll show in a corresponding invoice in QuickBooks. It's a one-way integration, taking invoice transactions from DocketWise to QuickBooks.
Yeah, I need to try this. And for those people who don't know what LawPay is essentially a merchant services, is a credit card processing services for lawyers that are set up so they're excellent with trust account management. So you can set up an operating account and a trust account. So for the bar requirements, it's I found to be also a lifesaver, like DocketWise. A LawPay, it's also an excellent company. Their fees are transparent. Give them a call. I recommend it. I've been their client for years. Excellent suggestion. I also highly recommend LawPay. I think that they're one of the best processors for lawyers. Let's talk about a little bit about templates that you would need in your practice. So templates like templated motions, templated correspondence. I mean, where do you find these things? How do you know how to draft these things when you first start out?
So I bought templates from other attorneys. You don't reinvent the wheel, that's true. As far as motions are concerned, it's the same. And the motions are pretty much the same in what we're dealing with. You know, it's going to be a motion to reopen, administratively close. These are for the removal proceedings, of course, or denials. And just have somebody that you can trust and call for those. And then as far as the rest of it, templates, you know, the cover letters I've created my own cover letter, if it's for adjustment of status, if it's for the I-751, if it's for citizenship, if it's for an E2 visa, for an O. It's just, you're going to have those. When you get into the flow of things, you'll see that you're not reinventing the wheel. The cover letter is going to be the same. The motions are going to be the same. You're going to tweak a little bit of the facts, but overall, they're the same.
And I think that you can find motions by interacting with colleagues. So, I mean, it gets to sort of another point that I wanted to talk about, which is networking with networking with colleagues. And I think that there's a lot of really good places to network with colleagues. And that becomes important because you want to be able to ask questions if novel situations come up, especially when you're first starting. There's going to be situations where you're not going to know what to do. And it's important to be able to. Yeah. A lot of situations, actually, things that you'll see everything for the first time, and then once you sort of see how things happen, then you'll become more comfortable. But it can take you several years to really get your feet thoroughly on the ground until you really feel like you can handle pretty much anything that could come up and know what to do. But I think that there's a lot of good Facebook groups where you can network with colleagues. I'm going to plug Nerdy Immigration Lawyers. It's kind of a funny name, Nerdy Immigration Lawyers on Facebook. And they have a very active community. People are very open there, and you can pretty much put out any question that you have. There are some Facebook groups that are focused on more specific aspects of immigration. There's one I know of one large one for sports immigration lawyers. There's others for people in a specific geographical location, maybe New York immigration lawyers, South Florida immigration lawyers, et cetera. So you can check them out. But I think a big one is nerdy immigration lawyers. And then there's Technology for Immigration Practitioners is another good Facebook group. So if you join these groups, then you can ask people questions, and you can also potentially find templates. You may need a motion to issue a subpoena. I mean, that's a rarely used maneuver in immigration court. We don't often ask immigration judges to issue subpoenas, but once in a while you may. And you may not have a template for that. So you can go into the Facebook group and ask if anyone will share a template with you. And I probably, chances are they will. But that's an important part, because you don't want to be reinventing these things, you don't want to be reinventing the wheel, is what Tiffany had said. Anyone else want to add about the templates?
Just make sure they're up to date, even if you're getting them from a seasoned colleague. Make sure if your template is referencing a case law or a statute, make sure
Right.
it's up to date.
That's a very important. Always be aware that the policy changes and regulations change, and you may be citing to a case or citing to a section of the regs that's not enforced anymore. AILA has, they have the tool, it's like the Immigration Lawyers Practice Toolbox, something like that, I think it's called. And that is actually a pretty good collection of templates. I used that one when I first started. They have both the version for basically the general practice toolbox, and they have the version for litigation. It's basically the litigation toolbox. And I found both of those to be very well put together. Okay, let's talk a little bit about hiring people. Where do you find employees? Are you going to be 100% solo? Are you going to have a staff, and where are you going to find them? How to look for a paralegal, and what to look for in a paralegal? How to delegate responsibilities? Either of you want to talk about that?
I think in the beginning, when I was starting, what I did is utilized my local law school, and I used law clerks from there. I think that's a great way to start, because I think when you're starting, you don't really know. I was using a phone answering system, but as you get more seasoned, I think, and you realize what you need, that support staff is essential, and it's got to be somebody that you can trust, obviously, and that is looking to grow also, that will grow with you, and not somebody who's looking for some temporary job that's, come a few months of training, they're like, this is too much. So I think it's very important to trust your gut, and to, people want, I started out, I was able to open my own practice because I literally worked for free for an attorney for, I don't know how long it was, and I got great experience. But you want somebody who's committed, who loves this, who sees this as important work and not just looking for a paycheck. Of course, make sure that you're competitive with that. And I actually sometimes prefer people that don't have much experience, because I can teach them, and I think it's important to grow together.
Yes, I utilize Indeed. I love Indeed. If you post for attorney or paralegal or assistant, you're gonna get, like, I don't know, 100 applications in 2 hours. That's my experience. I don't know, maybe I just describe it too well. I get a lot of applicants usually. So my problem is, it's where to find the time to interview them all, and also to make the right decision. I usually narrow down to 2-3 best candidates. But I don't have a concrete tip or advice on how to pick your support staff, because it really depends on what you're looking for. For a few years when I just started, I didn't have any assistants or paralegals. I answered my own phones because I didn't have clients really, and I had the time. And so if at the beginning I hired somebody part-time, and I don't mind like a college student, or I don't mind somebody is young, fresh, and familiar with technology. A lot of my assistants actually taught me a lot in the technology world, and they were so advanced with that different applications and stuff. That's really great to have that like fresh mind in your office. Now I have an excellent support staff, an excellent team. They all love what they do. And for me, it's the key. So when they're interviewing people, ask about their interests, what motivates them, their hobbies, and then just make the decision on your personal preference, I would say.
I think newly graduated law students who are in the process of trying to pass the bar, they may have just passed the bar, but haven't found a permanent position. Those can also be really good people to hire to do that sort of in between, in between the sort of paralegal level and the attorney level. There's a level where you kind of want people who know the law, know a little bit about what law practice is about. They're not fully trained, but they sort of, they have the legal education, and they can be really good people to have work for you. So that would be a recommendation. And legal interns too from local law schools would be another good source. Yeah. All right, well, I want to finish up. We have just a couple of minutes left talking about memberships, and what memberships do you think are important for immigration lawyers getting their practice started? Obviously, AILA, the Immigration Lawyers Association, you should join that, at least, join it for several years. And any other memberships? Some bar associations have immigration law sections. What other memberships do you two keep?
I definitely have my local, my bar association has an immigration. I have a local chapter. I'm in the San Fernando Valley, so we have a local chapter there as well. The first year, it's all free. So join all of them because networking is essential. Your first year as a lawyer, all of it's free. Join every single one that you possibly can. I think those are, you'll always find something that will cater to immigration. Everybody's always looking for one. There's groups of attorneys where I am that they meet, I think, monthly, and there's always a different kind of, all kinds of different kind of attorneys. And I feel like those are great ways to start.
The Federal Bar Association also historically has had a number of immigration-related events and good resources. So check out if there's a chapter of the FBA near you. Anna, what memberships do you keep?
AILA, absolutely, it's a lifesaver. I'm more selective with bar associations because in Virginia it's very expensive. And you can't, attend every single event, and sometimes you just need to try them out and pick your favorites. But also don't be afraid to network within community. It doesn't have to be law related. Join an organization that fits your interests and tell everybody that you're an attorney and you do immigration. Always carry a stack of cards with you and give them out. My husband does the same for me. He gives out my business cards to people that he hears foreign accent, and he always gives them a card. And he says, my wife is an attorney. Don't hesitate to call her if you or somebody needs help. And I always a little bit embarrassed because just because somebody speaks with an accent doesn't mean that they need immigration help. However, I did receive so many calls. I do receive so many calls and referrals from that. And people just say, oh, your husband gave me a card. I was his waiters the other day for lunch. And, my aunt, she is immigrating from Jamaica, and we have this question. I mean, you just never know. So besides, don't be so focused on lawyers, and, just be out there, just tell everybody what you do. And then, there's no shame in this game. That's what I say.
Zero ego, zero.
Great to hear. Well, it's been a great discussion. And I'm going to thank both of our guests for joining me today. I hope that you, the participants, you, the attendees have found this useful. We're going to be doing an entire series of these webinars as just to try to provide additional value to those of you who are using DocketWise. And if you have any questions for us, again, we're always here at team@docketwise.com. Once again, this has been James Pittman, co-founder here at DocaWise, with Anna Ernest, attorney in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and Tiffany Fetter from Southern California. Ladies, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. I really value both of you. You had absolutely wonderful insights today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, James.